Hello, and welcome to Magic is Real, a podcast focused on the fascinating world of near-death experiences, spirit communication, and all things metaphysical and spiritual. The mission of this project is to share messages of hope and inspiration with others, and to spread the word that death is only an illusion. Thank you for being here with an open heart and mind. I wish you peace, light, and love always. Hello, and welcome to Magic is Real. I'm your host, Shannon, and today I have somebody with me who I'm very happy to have with me. His name is Chris Essex, and Chris is a near-death experiencer. He's a regular person who had a not so regular experience, and I have him here to share his experience and his insights. And Chris has actually died, was it 8 times?
Eight, yeah,
8 times.
So
Now, I usually start by asking my guests about their background because I want to know about you and who you are, what your life was like before this happened, and even what your life is like now, and what's your life story in a nutshell that kind of informs your experience and your responses to having died eight
yeah.
times.
First of all, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be
Yeah.
here. So first and foremost, I'm a dad. I have a 6-year-old son that I'm crazy about. He turns 7 at the end of the month. I'm married. I work in TV news, so I'm a writer. Um, I'm kind of just your basic guy. I play Xbox. I don't. I just love being a dad. Hang out with my kid as much as I can. We, you know, build Lego, Play-Doh, all that, regular dad and son stuff.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. I'm a child care provider. I love kids. So I would love to know, before these things happened to you, were you spiritual at all? Were you religious? How were you raised?
Absolutely not. So
Yeah.
I when I was younger, we were religious in the household, right? But I had a couple bad experiences with religion when I was in maybe third grade, fourth grade. And since then, I just kind of thought about religion and God as more of an analytical way. I would think I don't have proof of this. I don't, there's too much going on in the solar system and that in the just everywhere that I couldn't see there being a God behind all that. I saw it being, controlled chaos, if you will. So I've never been very religious since I was little, and always kind of been an atheist until this experience. But leading up to that, definitely not a believer.
Your experience, what you just described is me. I mean, that's kind of how I was as well. I didn't have a near-death experience, but that sums it up. I had the same kinds of thoughts about, I love that controlled chaos. I didn't think that it came from a intelligent source as much as it just all happened. And and I love having people like you on because I think I really like this topic to be accessible and relatable to people who may not believe in it or might be on the fence about it, just as long as someone's open-minded. But it helps when the person delivering the message and sharing their story is somebody that is relatable in terms of, I'm very grounded, I'm very skeptical. I'm not into I was never into the woo-woo. I made fun of it. And here we are. Now I'm a medium and I like sell spiritual clothing on on Etsy, and like I meditate and do yoga and all the stuff.
And
So
I'm not, and I've never been one to judge people that are religious. It's
yeah,
like,
me
do
neither.
you, I'm gonna do me. As long as you don't force it on me, I'm not gonna force anything on you.
Exactly.
So, I think everybody can live together in harmony like that. And even with this experience, I don't want to say I'm full on religious yet. I want to say this experience has left me open to learning more.
Hmm.
Um, but it's kind of had me, yeah, it's had me thinking about it. We'll get more into that as we go.
Yeah, that's great. And that's really interesting. So I don't you've had so many experiences, and I know not all of them led to spiritual experiences, but why don't tell us where, however you're comfortable telling the story, and wherever you want to start from would be
Okay,
great.
so it was about a year ago, right? Last February. Let me go before that. So I was an amputee already, right? I lost my right leg below my knee. Um, there was an infection. It all started with running on a treadmill, got infected. So there's your anti-running message there. That went up my leg, all kinds of problems. So fast forward to last February, and where I had it previously amputated was open at the bottom, and that got infected again really badly. So that led me going into septic shock. I went to work one day. I don't remember going to work. I went to work. I interacted. I have pictures on my phone from that day because it was somebody's last day, a couple people's last day in my work, and did the pictures with the food and everything. But I don't remember any of it. I just remember the pictures, and I drove myself to the hospital. And so went to the hospital, got into a room, and a couple of the nurses that took care of me, I wasn't in a room where I was being monitored. So like I was in, just a regular hospital room where they come in every hour or two to check on you. Well, I had 2 or 3 different nurses. They came into my room and saw me foaming at the mouth, not breathing. So they did chest compressions, broke my ribs, which is so incredibly painful, but considering I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
And they brought me back, and I went to ICU. Now, still, I don't remember any of this. And while I was in ICU, over the course of 2 days, my heart stopped twice, or not twice. I'm sorry, 8 times over the course of 2 days. It stopped over and over and over. They had to do chest compressions, the chest paddles, all that stuff each time. And over the course of that, I had a stroke and a heart attack just from the stress that it put on my body. And after that, I was in the hospital for another month and a half in recovery, and I'm still in recovery now. I'm in the process of learning how to walk again. So I have a prosthetic and trying to get that done.
Yeah. And at what point now, where did the spiritual experience or what I know I don't know how you'll describe it, if it does feel linear to you, or just you can kind of go into it wherever you want to start.
Yeah, so I think I would call it 2 solid experiences. The first one, and I think this was all over the course of when I was going through my coding. I know it was.
Yeah.
It kept dying over and over. It happened, like I said, 8 times total. So the first one I had, I was walking through a field, and I mean, just picture like a blue sky wheat type field. I don't know what kind of plant it was exactly, if it was weeds or wheat, but it was like knee high on me. And I was walking, which again, I was an amputee already, so I wasn't really walking normally at that time yet. But I was walking normally, and it was so peaceful. Nothing scared me, nothing, but nobody was there either. All alone. It felt very real and surreal at the same time. Like all of it. I remember it very vividly, right? So I remember feeling the warmth of the sun coming down on me, feeling the grass on my fingers, whenever I touched it. And then the second experience that I had was I'm convinced it was a past life experience. So I lived a life with a different family, and I had 2 kids, a wife, but it wasn't my wife and it wasn't my kid. It wasn't anybody that I've known before. And what I remember is going to work or being at work, and I worked as like a butcher or somebody at a grocery store, that cuts the meat, which that's not something I would do ever in this life.
Right.
I've never even thought about doing that. And I remember after that being at home, sitting around the dinner table with my family. And that's not something I really do much either, is we don't really sit at the table and have dinner. We usually kind of do our own thing because we're all kind of busy. And I can go into each one of those a little bit more vividly, but those were the 2 main experiences that I have, or that I had.
Yeah. And
The-
when I'll ask you the sort of past life one, when you were experiencing that, was it or did you experience it as a memory, or did you experience it as you are literally there?
if you had to ask me, I feel like I experienced like I was there. Like
Yeah.
it felt like I was living it. And
Wow.
sorry, my mouth got dry. No, I felt
I've
like
got
I felt like I was there. And I've had a lot of people ask me if it was something that I felt like I was controlling what was going on in that
right.
moment. And my answer to that has been, I don't, you know how you go to work, you come home, you have dinner, you hang out with your family or whatever. It was a choice, as in like that's a choice. That's something that you're going to do anyway.
Hmm.
So it's not like I felt like I needed to do something else. I felt like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing in that moment. And it did feel like I was living it as opposed to remembering it.
And also, did you feel a connection
I
with
did.
those people like you were that person still? Yeah.
I did. And it felt so real to me that when I woke up, I spent a lot of time, not a lot of time, but I mean it seems like a lot of time, which is 5 minutes, which is a lot,
Yeah.
knowing what was my real life. So like when I woke up from a coma, I spent a total of 2 weeks in a coma. When I woke up, my wife was right next to me, my actual wife. And I saw her and I didn't know if what I was experiencing was real. So the very first thing I said was my son's name, which is Alex. And I saw my wife and I recognized her as my wife, but I didn't know, okay, is what I'm experiencing now real, or was what I experiencing there real?
Yeah.
And and that's such a bizarre feeling. And 5 minutes might not sound like a long time, but when you're in that mindset and you're already confused because you don't know how the heck you got in this position. I mean, 5 minutes is a long time to not know
Yeah.
what's real and what's not.
Yeah, and I do want to hear more about other experiences that you had in that time frame, but I'm kind of deep diving into this particular one because I think it's really interesting and clearly it was, I think too. It sounds like a past life experience because why would that be what you would see if it was loved ones on the other side or whatever? But what really strikes me about that is the feeling I have is you know how well, tell me if your thoughts about this. A lot of near-death experiencers describe it as there's no time on the other side. I don't know if you actually had a chance to feel that, but the other thing I hear a lot is that reincarnation is not something that happens linearly. Like, even though you could have been somebody back in uh, like the 1300s, it's all happening at the same time,
Yeah, I know what
technically.
you're saying. Yeah.
And so it's almost as if in my mind, I saw you like shifting dimensions, almost dimension hopping or time hopping, not necessarily to a different time, but maybe just
A
you
different time,
just
different.
your consciousness was able to kind of skip over to this other dimension that's happening that was
Yeah,
happening currently. I don't know if you what that felt if that felt that way to you.
my wife and I have talked a lot about that actually. She's always been one to kind of believe in past lives, past life
Yeah,
experiences. But it did kind of feel like a jump. And let me get a little bit more bizarre on you.
please.
Coming back, I felt like a lot of little things that I can't quite pinpoint them, or they just felt off. So like
Mhm.
it just, one thing that is a big thing, but we while I was in the hospital, we moved into a different apartment. Right. I lived in an upstairs apartment. We moved into a different one. So I went into the hospital in one, came out in a different one. So it's one of those things. It's like, okay, it's in the same apartment complex. So it's the same style apartment, but it's a little bit off, and it's like that feeling. It's like I've had
Yeah.
little instances like that where it's just like it's not anything massive, but it's enough to where you're like, okay, hold on a second. This feels just a little bit off.
I've heard that is common, and I'm sure you have researched it too. It's kind of similar to Back to the Future, where he comes I mean, and that's different because it was all sort of the butterfly effect, like, what if this didn't happen, then things would be different, but apparently when you, quantum jump, the w I've heard people say the way you know that you've quantum jumped is that you'll come back, but there might be a little thing different, like something you always leave in the same place as across the room or not there at all or something to that effect, so I really appreciate you sharing that because it kinda helps put things together.
Well, I haven't really read about a lot of other people doing that. I haven't really looked that up, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because I'm big on laying there in bed at 3 in the morning and just Googling everything I can
Yeah,
think
me
of.
too.
But I haven't really heard that, but that makes a lot of sense though.
It
That's
does.
very
And
interesting to say that.
yeah, I hear it more in reference to quantum jumping. So, because I think you wouldn't even know what to what would you even Google? But I have heard that I just heard it the other day, in fact, in some YouTube thing.
Yeah, I would absolutely say that that's true. That's
It's
definitely the case.
interesting. Yeah. Oh, wow. It's like the upside down a little bit, but not
But
totally.
not completely upside down, maybe like a little bit upside, a
Yeah, just
little.
a few little things different. That's so
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, so yeah, if you don't mind sharing a little bit more about what else you experienced while you were in this coma. What that and also what is I'm just curious about what it feels like to be in a coma in terms of your sensation of are in the times where you're not having these experiences, are you just not is there nothing?
I don't remember anything else.
Yeah, that's what I would
Um,
assume.
my wife said that one time I woke up in the middle of it, and I feel like, and I could just be making this up because she said that, but I feel like I remember that a little bit, like in a foggy kind of way. But
Mhm.
again, I could be kind of just making that up in my head since she said that, and
Yeah,
so
to fill in the blanks.
I don't want to say for sure that that's the case, but it felt dark. Like I don't remember anything else aside from those two experiences.
Yeah. Um, and so when you came out of your coma,
Mhm.
did you remember this stuff immediately or did it take a while for the memory to okay, it did.
Yes. The other family I remembered right away. Like I said, I was confused at first about which one was real. So I mean, it was that immediate to me and that clear to me. Um, yeah, it felt so real, and I remember it right away. And as I go, I feel like I've thought of a little bit more, and I feel like I've remembered a little bit more. But it's one of those things, like I just talked about. I don't want to trust my memory because I don't want to. I still am skeptical, right?
Right.
So I don't want to be that guy that goes around filling stuff in, and then all of a sudden I have some grand story about a whole life and the days and the weeks that entails, when that's just not what I
Yeah.
remember. And that's kind of my mindset. Like, if I think about it more, I can think about I was in a car, because a lot of people have asked me, was it now or was it the 50s? Was it the
I was
1900s?
g I was wondering the same
Yeah.
thing.
And
I was
so
like, "What were people wearing?" I always like the details.
and so when people have asked me that, I've thought, okay, I was in a car at one point, but that's a memory that seems kind of foggy to me,
Yeah,
whereas the other stuff is crystal clear.
right.
Um, but if I were to guess, I would think it was like the 1950s. It
Mhm.
felt like, the grocery store, because I remember working in the store, like I said,
Yeah.
and the style, with the butcher hat and the way you picture grocery stores looking
Wow.
in the 50s, where it was like the families and
That's how I pictured it,
yeah.
like the 1950s family,
Yeah, and that's
American
what it
family.
felt like. I mean, we didn't have phones at the table, we didn't have a TV. It was just sitting around eating dinner like it's like a
Yeah,
stereotypical 1950s family, you know?
yeah, like, "Jane, pass the potatoes."
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have you ever have you considered or are you interested in doing a past life regression at any point to
Oh,
see if you can go
absolutely. Yeah,
deeper? Yeah.
I would totally be open to that.
Yeah.
Um, I've never done anything like that, never gone to a psychic, never done a past life, but I would definitely be interested in doing that at some point.
Yeah. Just to see if you because I would love to now, don't you wonder who that guy was and what it
Absolutely.
and I from what I understand, from what I've put together, there are oh, what I was gonna say. From what I've put together, like I said, you don't always reincarnate even not only do you not necessarily reincarnate in sequential order, it's all happening at the same time, but now I'm starting to learn and hear that people actually incarnate into other planets or and I delved into this hardcore. I've been talking about it on the podcast, so I forgive everyone for this new obsession if you're getting annoyed by it, but it's but I'm delving into it to the point of like doing episodes about it because I used to be very skeptical of UFO stuff and alien stuff, but now I'm starting to hear and more people say I remember my life as like an Arcturian or I remember my life as and
Uh,
realizing that it's not as crazy as it sounds because they're all interdimensional beings, and why just why is that? Why can I channel dead people, but I wouldn't be able to also open myself up to there are other beings in other dimensions, and I've shared too on the show that I've seen it finally came together that I saw one and then never could figure out what it was, and I just figured it out that it was what people are describing. So it's also fascinating to me, and I would love that I'd assume you'd be so curious to know
Oh, absolutely.
who was that guy, and like what if
How cool would it be if I could look that guy up?
I
I could
know like
records.
his family and find out if his kids are still alive and be like, I was your dad in another life. Like that's so
I would be
cool.
almost afraid to send that message.
I know I would be
It's
too,
gonna
but it
sound crazy, but I remember you.
yes,
And
you're
I'm
my
younger than you.
child. I know, it's really interesting. Are there any other things that, happened during that time? Was it those are the 2 main memories. Were there, did you come out with an un like I said, and I know you're not claiming to know what caused it or even but it opened your mind, right? So did you come out of that just wanting to know more about, like, now maybe I might be open like, how open were you at that point to the idea of this might be a spiritual
Well,
thing?
I've always liked paranormal stuff. I've
Yeah,
always been just watching unsolved mysteries as a kid,
me
and
too.
that got me hooked. And so I've always enjoyed those kinds of stories, but I've never experienced anything like that. And so it's definitely opened my mind up. My wife went from atheist to full-on believer.
Wow, that's so
And,
cool.
yeah, so I'm still kind of on the fence about my beliefs.
Mhm.
And like I said earlier, I'm open to it. But she said that while I was out, she prayed every day, and and it worked for her. And
Yeah,
she's all in on it now.
yeah. It's really cool how things like that, I mean, unfortunate things though can kind of wake
I,
us up to this idea that this might not be all there is. Having had this experience, do you have a fear of death now? S-
I've been
I
asked
know
that
you're a
a
dad, so it's
that's what I was gonna say. I've been asked this a
I
lot.
get that.
So I'm not afraid of what's there, but I'm afraid to leave my son.
Yeah, I know.
And that's what breaks my heart when I think about how close I came. You know, and my wife's told me several times, like I was so afraid to have to tell Alex what happened.
Oh, I know.
And I couldn't imagine that. You know, at 6, you just don't understand. I
Yeah.
mean, she's gonna he she was she you're he's gonna think that she was lying to him or something. Dad's not coming home. But that's what scares me. Not so
Right.
much what's there, but the what you leave behind is the scary part.
Right. And a lot of people after they have an whatever we'll call it, an out of body experience, near death experience, have come out of it noticing that their intuition has been heightened. In fact, a lot of them start to get like downloads and information from the other side, from spirit, whatever. Have you experienced a shift in your consciousness in any way or noticed anything different about you?
You know, I feel like I'm a little bit more intuitive.
Yeah.
But I can't say that I've had anything like that. So well defined.
Hmm.
But I haven't really thought about it either. So I haven't really been looking for it. I guess
Right.
because I've never heard that.
Yeah. And it might be something as subtle as a medium. I can tell you too that, and people listening, that I used to think a medium was because I didn't know I had these. I mean, we all have these abilities. That's the bottom line. Because it's the same thing as how animals know there's going to be an earthquake. It's actually a sixth sense that we need for survival. So it's not actually something that's unusual, but we make it unusual because we don't use it anymore. However, a lot of cultures, like the Native American culture, have always believed it. They've always known it. And that's, I believe, because before they were invaded, they lived off the land and there was no technology and they were very much at one with nature and other cultures too. And so for them, it wasn't unusual to use your intuition. It's the same way you know someone's staring at you
Mhm.
when they're behind you. You just feel their energy.
Feel that feeling, yeah,
You
yeah.
just know, or sometimes you just think of someone and they call you. And literally the other day, yesterday, I picked up the phone to text somebody. I hadn't talked to him in a long, long time, a voiceover friend, and he texted me and goes, "Oh, I just realized I hadn't listened to your message from September." And I'm like, I literally picked up the phone just to text you. That's so weird.
Uh,
And it's that we have it, and like how if something happens to your son, God forbid, but you'll feel it. I mean, I don't want to hope you probably never had the occasion to have to feel it, but even if he's having a bad day, or you can feel he's your child and there's a strong bond. So I tell people that everybody is a psychic if you believe in it. I mean, you may just not believe in it, so you're not going to cultivate it.
may not listen to your instincts on it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
those thoughts that you have in your head, half of them, I don't know how many percentage, are actually, some come from you, some come from somewhere else.
Yeah,
And
I do have some stories where I've been like that before.
oh yeah,
And you're saying that I'm always saying something to my wife, like, you're thinking this, and she's like, you're freaking me out. Don't, and
yeah,
I know, you know, I'll start singing a song out loud that she was singing in her head. And,
yeah.
like, what the heck, get out of my head. And it's kind of always been a back and forth thing. And I guess even before all this, when we first met, her and I first met, this was years ago, we almost got rear-ended, and I didn't know her well. I mean, we almost got rear-ended at like 60 miles an hour, and we didn't know each other well. So I was just like, Amy, go drive now. And she guns it for no reason. She didn't know me well enough to know that I wasn't just messing with her. But we would have gotten hurt or killed in that crash. And it
So
was,
yeah.
so it's just, yeah, I have had moments like that.
And I
Over,
think we all think, oh, well, I just felt, we either write it off as, oh, I don't know. I don't know how I knew that. Or I don't know. I had a feeling, or I was lucky. And until I started studying mediumship, I thought the same thing, just I took it for granted. But I think that's, people tend to think it's something so paranormal or supernatural when really it's very natural. In fact, in the I'm what they call a highly sensitive person. 15% of the population are HSPs. All it means is your brain is wired differently, in the sense that back in the day, you were the part of the herd that was the danger watchers. So if we heard a rustling in the bush, we were the ones that alerted the rest of the herd. Some of them are the hunters, and some are the defenders, and some are our ears prick up at the slightest little thing. Now it
like the
can be,
watchtower, the one, yeah.
yes, it can be so difficult to live in this world, in this society rather, in this American society, with that ability, because that's why we're all on Prozac, because the anxiety is always, I'm always in fight or flight. But it's a gift, and it's just a matter of focusing on it and using it, and realizing that all of
Well,
these thoughts.
the problem too is if you say something and you're wrong, all of a sudden you're crazy and you don't know what you're talking about. When you're right
Right.
80% of the time, but that one time
Yeah.
you're wrong, and then everybody looks down at you like, oh, what the heck? Yeah,
Right. And I
yeah,
think it's such an interesting thing, because it is a matter of how much attention you pay it. And now you may notice it. And even just because we're talking about it, I would love to know, when, as you go through your life, if you do start to notice
yeah.
that you're more conscious or aware of these subtle little energies or dreams, or just a thought that comes into your mind, or where it's like it could be your grandmother or your mother, and whatever, in spirit. And all of a sudden you just get, oh, wait a second, let me think twice about where did that thought come from. And so much, we think, I don't know how many thoughts a day, but we know there's like thousands of thoughts a day. And what mediumship is, for example, is just tuning into those thoughts and paying attention, and realizing that, oh, wait, there is something going on in there. But we're distracted by technology, by games, by traffic, by everything happening, that we tune out those subtle little feelings and thoughts in our, and that's why we meditate, to enhance those abilities. So, um, after all of this happened to you, besides being incredibly grateful that you could be there for your son and not have to leave, how has this changed your, I know that you're not committed to any kind of religion. I'm not religious either, but dogma, which is, I don't think anyone, needs to be. But do you see life differently? Do you go through the world differently?
Absolutely, I do see life differently. I mean, if only for just to see how fragile it is,
Yeah.
how quickly things can go from fine to not fine. And
Hmm.
it really makes you take a step back and look at everything. And how fragile, you could be. You could have just talked to your best friend and then 2 minutes later they got in a crash. I mean, it's just that's how fragile everything is. And so, I mean, I think a lot of my mindset now is every time my kid leaves, I love you, I love you, you get obnoxious with it.
Yeah.
You never know. You don't, you assume nothing bad will happen, but you just never know. And, you got to make sure that that person knows how you feel in case something does happen.
Mhm. And even though you don't remember a lot of specifics, did you come out of this with sort of a different kind of understanding or knowing about your place in this world, the universe at large, anything like that?
Um, you know, I think I came out of it thinking that there is a past life, you know, and it's interesting kind of what you said about the parallel. And I think that's completely possible too. But I think I've come out of this knowing that once you die, it's not over,
Hmm.
that there's something. I just don't know what that something is.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know that there's something. I mean, I feel it, you know.
Yeah.
And if you would have asked me that a year ago, I would have said, whatever, go away. At the same time, loving to hear ghost stories and stuff. But I would
Yeah.
have,
Same.
yeah, but I would have told you to no, yeah, there's nothing after. But now I do truly feel like there's something after.
Yeah. Does it, does it change? I mean, I know, like you said, now you just are kind of very conscious of, I could lose this at any moment. But as you go through your day to day, whatever, working, cooking, spending time with Alex, do you feel different in the world in terms of like, I don't know how to, energetically, do you kind of look around at things differently?
Yeah, you look at stuff with just a whole new set of eyes, like thankful for the little things, you know. And that's kind of where I am now. I'm just thankful for everything, and I'm just so happy to be here. I
Yeah.
mean, I can't, I'm trying to put it into better words, but that's kind of the best I have there. Is just I'm so happy to be here, but I'm not scared of what's next. And that's kind of, I just turned 40, and I would have been terrified of dying, last year.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness, I'm 40 now, I'm getting a little bit older, and I would have been terrified. But now I'm like, as long as my kid grows up and he's happy and healthy, if when I pass away, hopefully a long time from now, I'm not afraid of what'll be after that.
Yeah. And in that, there's a gift. How are you feeling now in general, health wise and all of that?
It's still getting there. So mental health's been a problem with I deal with anxiety, depression, um, PTSD from all of it. Um, and that's probably the hardest part right now is kind of battling with all that. I go to a therapist.
Good. That's
um,
good.
I would see, that's a whole other thing. If you're having problems there, get help. I'm big on that. But no, that's my health other than that is pretty good. Everything is in control. The heart attack and the stroke that I had was because of my body going through the stress. It wasn't because I had pre-existing conditions that led
Hmm.
to that. Now, one thing that I do deal with is I've gone blind in my right side. So like I can't see from here over with my peripheral vision. Um, and then I have like memory problems. So like I'll start a sentence and then like where was I going with that? It'll be things like that.
That's stroke related, I would assume. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that you would like people to know generally about, I don't know, any lessons or insights you have? I understand you're not a guru, but just what would you if what is there what would you tell people? What's your big takeaway from all of this and what would you like to share?
My big takeaway, I think, is if you're a non-believer, that's fine. If you don't believe there's anything out there, that's fine. Because I totally understand that, but keep an open mind because I think that if you shut it down, that's just as bad as the hardcore religious person that's pressing their issues on you. You don't want to shut it. You don't want to shut anything down. Be open to learning about anything.
That's
That's
beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I think that is so important, especially how divided we all get.
absolutely.
Historically, we've been divided by religion, by different belief systems, and I just said to the guy yesterday that I reached out to, and he's like, "I was just reached out at the same time." He said, "I didn't know you were medium." And I said he said, "Yeah, I've never really believed in that stuff, but that's really cool." I said, "Hey, I just appreciate that you're willing to listen to it and be open-minded about it, and that all I ask is that anyone says, 'Oh, that's interesting.' I don't care if you," I said, "You don't have to believe it. If it doesn't align with your experiences, then it doesn't if it doesn't resonate, that's fine." But that's when I talked to him about the sixth sense and how really it's not that crazy
Yeah,
that
there's a lot to be said about having an open mind. If you
yeah,
cut yourself off, then you're doing a disservice to yourself more than anybody.
right. Exactly.
Right, you have to want to learn. If you don't agree with it, that's fine. It's not going to hurt you to learn about it. And then I think if I were to, the other thing I want everybody to, and this is kind of not related, but I touch on the mental health side. I mean, I'm such an advocate for that now.
Mhm.
If you need help, there's resources and there's places to get help. And I just don't want people to feel like they're having to suffer alone. It breaks my heart because I'm blessed to have people to talk to and to have people I can lean on. But I couldn't imagine being the person that might feel like they don't, and that's the takeaway that I want a lot of people to have to is find something that makes you happy. Start small. You don't have to change your mindset in one day. Just start small if you have to.
Yeah, thank you for that. I have a lot of I mean, I think we all do know a lot of people suffering with mental health issues and lost friends to it, and I just appreciate that message so much. I'm big on that as well, of just understanding and not, not shaming people for what they're going through because
And I
it's
think it's
difficult.
changing. I think the whole stigma behind mental health is changing, which
I think
which
so.
is a good thing.
Yeah, I do too. Well, I'm so glad that you're well, and I'm sorry that you have some residual things that you're working with. I know PTSD is really brutal, but I'm just very grateful to know that you are in therapy and that you are supported through it, and that I know that you're here for for very good reasons, and for your son and for your wife. And I look forward to seeing sort of what happens with you too. And I bet you in a few years or 10 years, you may even have had more experiences and validating experiences. So it'll be interesting to hear from you when that happens. But thank you so much for taking the time to be here and to share your experience. You're very grounded and realistic and just, like I said, very relatable insights.
Thanks for having me. I
My
appreciate it.
pleasure, Chris. Thanks.